Independence Day for the United States of America, July 4th, today. In 1776, the 13 colonies declared independence from Britain and King George III. A lot of people, especially the young generation, does not know what July 4th stands for, unfortunately. It's the federal holiday in the United States commemorating Declaration of Independence of the United States on July 4th, 1776. It's the pronouncement adopted by Second Continental Congress meeting at Pennsylvania State House of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, July 4th. Now, the Continental Congress declared that the 13 American colonies were no longer subordinate to the monarch of Britain, King George III. The 13 colonies, known as the 13 British colonies or the 13 American colonies, were a group of colonies of Great Britain on the Atlantic coast of America founded in the 17th and 18th centuries. The Congress voted to declare independence 2 days earlier, on July 2nd, but it was not declared until July 4th. Independence Day is commonly associated with fireworks, parades, barbecues, carnivals, fairs, picnics, concerts, baseball games, family reunions, political speeches, ceremonies, in addition to various other public and private events celebrating the history, government, and traditions of the United States. Independence Day is the national holiday of the United States. Now, during the American Revolution, the political revolution occurred in the colonial North America between 1765 and 1783. The American patriots in the 13 colonies defeated the British in the American Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783, with the assistance of France. Now, the legal separation of these 13 colonies from Great Britain in 1776 actually occurred July 2nd, when the Second Continental Congress voted to approve the Resolution of Independence that had not been proposed in June. It had been proposed in June by Richard Henry Lee of Virginia, declaring the United States independent from Great Britain's rule. After voting for independence, Congress turned its attention to the Declaration of Independence, the statement explaining the decision, which had been prepared by a committee of 5 with Thomas Jefferson as its principal author. And Congress debated and revised the wording of the declaration, finally approving it 2 days later on July 4th. A day earlier, John Adams had written to his wife Abigail, "The second day of July, 1776, will be the most memorable epoch in the history of America. I am apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as a great anniversary festival. It ought to be commemorated as a day of deliverance by solemn acts of devotion to God Almighty. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations," meaning, of course, fireworks, "from one end of this continent to the other, from this time forward, forevermore," he said. This is by John Adams, his wife Abigail. Now, from the onset, Americans celebrated Independence Day on July 4th, the date shown on the much-publicized Declaration of Independence. Historians have long disputed whether members of Congress signed the Declaration on July 4th, even though Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Benjamin Franklin all later wrote that they had signed it on that day. Most historians concluded that the Declaration was signed nearly a month after its adoption, August 2nd, 1776. By a remarkable coincidence, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, the only two signatories of the Declaration of Independence later to serve as presidents of the United States, both died on the same day, July 4th, 1826, which was the 50th anniversary of the Declaration. Jefferson even mentioned the fact. Only one other signatory, Charles Carroll of Carrollton, survived them, dying in 1832. Although not a signatory of the Declaration of Independence, James Monroe, another founding father who was elected as president, also died on July 4th, 1831. He was the third president who died on the anniversary of independence. Calvin Coolidge, the 30th president, was born on 4th of July, 1872. So far, he's the only U.S. president to have been born on Independence Day. The observance. In 1777, 13 gunshots were fired in salute, once at morning and once again in the evening on 4th of July in Bristol, Rhode Island. An article on July 18, 1777, issue of the Virginia Gazette noted a celebration in Philadelphia in a manner a modern American would find familiar. An official dinner for the Congressional Congress toasts 13 gun salutes, speeches, prayers, music, parades, troop reviews, and fireworks. Ships in port were decked with red, white, and blue bunting. In 1778, from his headquarters at Ross Hall near New Brunswick, New Jersey, General George Washington marked July 4th with a double ration of rum for his soldiers and an artillery salute, feu de joie. Across the Atlantic Ocean, Ambassadors John Adams and Benjamin Franklin held a dinner for their fellow Americans in Paris, France. In 1779, July 4th fell on a Sunday. The holiday was celebrated on Monday, July 5th. In 1781, the Massachusetts General Court became the first state legislature to recognize July 4th as a state celebration. In 1783, Salem, North Carolina held a celebration with a challenging music program assembled by Johann Friedrich Peter titled The Psalm of Joy. The town claims to be the first public 4th of July event, as it was carefully documented by the Moravian Church, and there are no government records of any earlier celebrations. In 1870, the U.S. Congress made Independence Day an unpaid holiday for federal employees. In 1938, Congress changed Independence Day to a paid federal holiday. Now, a little bit concerning George III of the United Kingdom, and that's when he lived between October 25th, 1760. He died in January 29th, 1820. Longest living monarch of Britain after Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth II, who is still alive today. He said that they say that when I was reading the Wikipedia details of his life, he was sick, and they thought he had something called porphyria, and they found that he had a lot of arsenic in his body. And they said it was probably from the medication that was being administered by his doctors. Now, concerning the American War of Independence, culminating the civil and political American Revolution, resulting from the American Enlightenment, brought to a head over the lack of American representation in Parliament, which was seen as a denial of their rights as Englishmen, and often popularly focused on direct taxes levied by Parliament on the colonies without their consent. They were overtaxed, of course. The colonists resisted the imposition of direct rule after the Boston Tea Party, and the Boston Tea Party was a political mercantile direct action by the Sons of Liberty in Boston, Massachusetts, December 16, 1773. The target was the Tea Act of May 10th, which allowed the British East India Company to sell tea from China in America and extracted a lot of taxes. Now, creating self-governing provinces, they circumvented the British ruling apparatus in each colony by 1774. Armed conflict between British regulators and colonial militiamen broke out at the Battle of Lennox and Concord in April 1775. After petitions to the Crown for intervention with Parliament, after they were ignored, the rebel leaders were declared traitors by the Crown, and a year of fighting ensued. The colonies declared their independence, as we said, July 4th, 1776, listing 27 grievances against the British King and legislature while asking the support of the populace. Among George's other offenses, the declaration charged he has abdicated government here, he has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. The gilded equestrian statue of George III in New York was pulled down. The British captured the city in 1776 but lost Boston, and the grand strategic plan of invading from Canada and cutting off New England failed with the surrender of the British Lieutenant General John Burgoyne at Saratoga. So we have a very rich American history of heroes. Fantastic. They went against the massive British army and they won with almost their picks and shovels and very few guns. So you can imagine it was another David and Goliath event here. So happy 4th of July. God bless America. God bless the former heroes, the present heroes and the future heroes of America. God bless you all and your loved ones. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.